Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Anime Junction Cast, episode number 4. Mark with my co-host Brandon.
What's up, guys?
Yeah, everything's doing pretty good. Obviously want to get right into it. Just want a quick shout out to everyone that supports the channel. Obviously appreciate it if you give a sub, a like, give us a comment down below. Obviously appreciate everyone that's able to support us, and as well as socials will be down in the description below.
And hit that notification bell because it
Oh,
does more good than anything else.
definitely we want to reach as many people, and we want to do a lot of good stuff. So when you comment down below, good, bad, otherwise. Yeah, we just want to get right into this. Want to get right into it. We've recently, I know Brandon's a huge Rurouni Kenshin fan. Uh, I'm a fan of it more on the periphery, but I know Brandon had been a huge fan of watching these movies, and I know you really want to talk about them. Uh, I think there's like 5 in general. I've only had the chance to actually watch the first one, uh, but I guess my immediate thoughts were for an anime live action movie, surprisingly good actually.
Did you watch Final Chapter Part 1? Is that what you watched?
It's the
Or did
first.
you watch
It's the first
the
the first movie. I believe it's the Origins movie.
is it called Origin? I think it's called just Oh yeah, Part 1 Origins.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the one you watched.
Yes.
Yeah, so I liked that one. I thought it was a pretty good adaptation of the manga because it definitely referenced the manga more than it did the anime. I don't know if you noticed that, but it definitely was referencing the manga more than the anime because the anime took kind of a different turn where it became like a what would the word be? Where it was more in lines of things like Naruto and Dragon Ball Z, like a shonen. Um the anime didn't like really have that feeling to me, but I felt like this was one of the better adaptations I've ever seen of an anime movie because we've seen a lot of bad Japanese anime movies. A lot of bad ones.
Yeah. Attack on Titan comes
I,
to mind.
yeah, and I mean, and American ones too, not
Yeah.
just Japanese, but both of them, for some reason, anime and manga seem to not adapt well to the big screen. I don't know why, but we've had 3 attempts at Death Note movies in Japan, and then an attempt on Netflix here in the US, and they were all terrible. So,
Yeah, the whole Death Note, obviously, Cowboy Bebop was a surprising
how,
disappointment. I don't know, they fumbled the bag on that one, but I have read because I read the first omnibus of Rurouni Kenshin, but it's been like since 2012 since I actually read that first omnibus. I know I was when I first watched it, I kept thinking about the actual anime first of all, and from my understanding, it was an interesting adaptation. Obviously, something has to be changed, but surprisingly, really just a generally well done film in general. Even if you've never watched the
yeah,
original anime or read the manga, it just felt like a really good uh, samurai period piece movie. Obviously, it took a lot of things. Some of the fight scenes are hyper
the fight
unrealistic,
scenes,
but they're
the
still
fight
really
scenes
good.
were the best part, I
No,
think.
they're good, and you can obviously tell it's not like the old period pieces from like the 50s, some of the old black and white
Right.
samurai movies or something like that.
Thank God, because if it was that, then it wouldn't be accurate to the anime or manga at all.
No, but I thought of those and I'm like, those are good movies, and this is a good samurai movie, especially considering its source material. Like I was thoroughly enjoying the movie and how it took it. And I'll say one thing I absolutely loved it, just because I can remember the anime far more than the manga right now. I like the fact that it maintained a very serious tone throughout the whole movie for the most part. Because sometimes with the anime, it's an anime, you need some more lightheartedness. But it
Yeah,
kind of took what you expected, cut out a lot of the fluff, kept the plot moving forward, and it's a very serious story, and it kind of kept that
right.
tone. Obviously, all your side characters are there; they're slowly introduced. But Roni is your main. He's your main protagonist, and you're spending the most time with him. The side characters kind of get tossed to the side, but that's just the nature of the amount of screen time you have, and
Yeah.
side characters there to support the main characters.
Yeah, one thing I'll say though to add on, um, something that I kind of noticed was how do I explain this? Um, like the villains weren't given a lot of time in the movie, so like they didn't flesh out the villains. the way that I would have liked them to. But when you're mentioning, hey, this had like a lot more serious tone than maybe a lighthearted anime or manga, that's because it also was taking the very serious and or the manga was very serious in the beginning. And then you
Yeah.
have Samurai X, the OVAs, which is very serious in nature.
Oh yeah.
There's no comedy to be had at all. So that's kind of the tone I feel like that they were going with for the first two movies. Did you ever watch the Samurai X OVAs?
It's been a few years, but I remember watching it and really like it's obviously that old what's it
It's
those old
brutality.
OVAs, extremely brutal samurai war films, and
Yeah,
it's good though.
there's it's the what they call the past version of Rurouni.
Yeah,
This is before he decided to turn away from killing people and doing the what you call it, not double-sided blade, but the
the
like
reverse blade.
using the reverse blade so he's not killing people.
Yeah,
So he like changes ways.
yeah,
And it really takes on that aspect of it with the seriousness of the films, which I think is great because honestly, the Samurai X OVAs could be like a film trilogy, maybe not a trilogy, but it could be a thing all on its own because it
yeah,
tells the complete backstory, the full backstory, and you get more, even more in the manga. The Samurai X OVAs doesn't even cover everything. You get more in the manga, but those OVAs are very important to learning the backstory of Rurouni and why he is the way that he is and why he has become the lighthearted person that he is and no longer kills people.
yeah,
So I think it's super important. And the movie definitely touched on that. I don't think it touched on it enough, but I still think the first movie was great. Um, but yeah, definitely didn't flesh out the villains. The villains didn't get enough screen time. There was just no fleshing them out at all, in
yeah.
my opinion.
I can't remember the one dude. He kind of looks a little goofy, but he's very obviously your main protagonist because there's some kind of form of was it amphetamine? That didn't sound right.
Are you talking
Opium.
about Koji? Are you talking about Koji
The
or
main
Udo?
see, I can't remember off the top of my head. But the actual main villain who's in charge of selling the opium, like he's the whole mastermind behind it. The
Oh,
merchant guy.
that wasn't Udo. That was I cannot remember the name off the top of my head. I might have to look it up.
Is it Takeda?
It might be. I mean, like the two of the protagonists or two of the villains that were in the film, two of the bigger villains were Munetaka and then Udo. But the one that
Yeah.
you're talking about is not that, and I cannot
No.
remember his
I
name.
thought he might be Takeda, but I off the top of my head because I know no, it's being super elusive right now. But obviously, the for those that don't know who haven't watched the movie, it kind of takes place, the Hope opium drug lord, and it's causing problems. And then he reaches out to Kenshin, 'cause he's trying to, wants power and kind of insulted because Kenshin just kind of more or less spits in his face like, I don't want your money, I don't want to help you at all. But I mean, more or less, the bulk of the screen time is dealt with Kenshin. I like how the film delved into his background, the whole why he has the X on his face. I can't remember. There's subtle differences between the
Yeah, they
anime manga
explain
and the
that in
film,
the
but it really
they
well done flashback scenes.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And then obviously you've got
So
a Kaori, who's your main, I don't want to say heroine or slash love interest, but she's the owner of the dojo and stuff like that. And then dealing with the same issues. But I mean, ultimately, from both a adaptation and a general samurai film, I came away extremely satisfied and absolutely loving, uh, this film. And I'm surprisingly, it came out in 2012. It's a series
yeah,
of 5 films.
that's why they released the omnibus was
Yeah,
kind of to promote that. Yeah.
but I definitely, and I found out that I bought the actual DVD slash Blu-ray combo years ago and never actually got around to watching it. But I mean, it's just a general good film, samurai film. Whether you're watching this or what's it, 13 Samurai, some of the old, really well done samurai films. I mean, there's a little bit of suspense of disbelief with some of the fighting scenes. They're really good and really well choreographed, but it's obviously taking inspiration from the manga as far as how certain things are done. and the ungodly large sword that what's it Sagara wields.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. One thing I'll also mention too, for anybody that's considering watching this movie, there is a prequel movie too that came out in 2021, I think. I think it came out. Let me look.
yeah,
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 2021. It's called Rurouni Kenshin: The Beginning, and it dives into the more of the OVA stuff, which I think is crucial to knowing the backstory of this character, because it's kind of weird to just jump into the anime or the movie with the character just being a lot more lighthearted, doesn't want to kill anybody. But this gives a backstory of why he is the way that he is. And that I like the reason I think I latched on this anime was because of the transformation, that you had such a gruesome guy that was the ultimate samurai. Um and he turned into being somebody completely different and just turned his face to that world
yeah.
and just became a normal person, worked in a village, did stuff in the village, opened up a dojo in the village, and just did normal everyday stuff. And that's why I think I latched on so much to this anime, is because he was who he was and he changed. So,
Yeah, I don't think it's unrealistic because I mean I know people that have gone fought wars and stuff like that. They come back like you might join the military gung ho, want to go see some action, go to war something like that, and then you come back and it's a complete 180. You can have a
yeah.
fictionalized, kind of fictionalized or a romanticized, be the better term, view of combat and warfare, and then you're there and you come back and you're like I don't even want to hold a weapon or I don't want to kill anybody anymore. I just want to live a quiet, peaceful life. Like
Yeah.
I've done things and seen things that nobody should, and in that
Yeah.
aspect, I think it's very realistic.
Yeah.
Obviously,
It really
different
is.
time periods, but yeah, just because I know people personally that I've talked with, and I mean, obviously not everybody like that. There are some people that might be a little insane, but
Yeah,
I
that
came away
happens too.
thinking that it's very realistic.
Yeah, yeah, I really love it. It's one of those things. Does this make you want to go back and watch the anime or read the manga?
It makes me want to first of all finish all five of these movies. That's definitely on my
Yeah,
docket. I just finding time's always it was always a challenge, but yeah, I want to go back and rewatch the anime, reread the manga, and just kind of get a wholesale comparison on where it did its own thing, where it took inspiration from either the anime or the manga, where it varied, and why certain liberties were taken, obviously. But no, I it just and it also kind of reminded me of like why the series was so good when it first came out.
it was so good. I mean, it
Absolutely,
was so good. And I feel like it never actually took off the way that a lot of other anime in the same vein. I always put Yu Yu Hakusho and this in the sort of same vein because they came out around the same time
yeah,
and they were on Tanami around the same time. They were airing together. Um if people knew one, they probably knew the other. Yu Yu Hakusho was obviously the bigger show,
yeah,
which I love as well. But Rurouni Kenshin, I feel like it kind of didn't get the love that it deserved, and it was such a great such a great anime. One that drew me in to want to read the manga, and then I went and read all the manga, and I just loved it. I mean, I loved every bit of it. I couldn't get enough, and I love the transformation of him, and I loved even seeing him in like everyday life of normal situations happening in the village and
yeah.
things like that. And I also wanted to mention, if anybody's interested in watching the movie, there's actually a collection with all five movies in it that are dubbed. It has English dub and Japanese sub for 33.99 on eBay right now. You can get
Yeah.
it. So
This is I and as much as I prefer to watch anime in English, when I'm watching like a live action adaptation, I think it just works better subbed. Uh,
yeah,
it's like
no, I
watching
agree.
those old, Godzilla movies
Gods of
where it's dubbed
yeah.
over in English. I'm like, it just doesn't feel right.
It's pretty rough, yeah.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
yeah,
it looks like there's a couple different collections with all five movies, and I see three different ones here, so must have been
yeah,
reprinted a few times.
no, yeah, and then kind of said I think some of the downtime helps make when there is a lot of action in the series, both the series and in the movie.
Yeah,
The slowing down makes the action scenes really stick out and more memorable because it's not just constant action. It's action when there needs to be, and the rest of the time, it's the story's kind of taking its time because I think it's like a it's like a 2 hour 15-minute
Two
movie.
and
It's
yeah, it's
it
almost 2.5
definitely
hours.
it's not a short film. It takes its time to develop its main characters. Obviously, side characters, maybe some of your villains kind of get left to the wayside a little bit. But your obviously your main character gets the bulk of the focus, and I think it does a really good job uh, transferring it from a manga slash anime to an actual film, where obviously things have to be changed for the nature of live action and a shortened condensed runtime essentially.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And this is definitely up there as one of the best anime movies that I had seen. It was weird that I hadn't watched it until recently. Like I knew that they existed, but I forgot. And I still got to watch. I still got to catch up and watch the new show that's running, which is crazy. I still can't believe we have a new anime adaptation that's running now that I need to catch up and watch. So I think that'd be worth like diving into in this podcast.
Absolutely got to dive into it because it's only going to get buried. There's always more anime coming out. I know
Always.
we talked about one to hit up. Uh, yeah, fall anime 24 is right around the corner. But
I know.
speaking of fall anime that's right around the corner, we got a new trailer for Dragon Ball Daima, and that's about a month
Yes.
away from
Yes.
airing. I guess what were your initial thoughts when you saw it, or what are your expectations for this series essentially?
My expectations are much higher than they were before. I'm going to pull it up real time too to watch it again, but my expectations are pretty dang high. I think the series looks way better than I originally thought it was going to be. I thought it was kind of going to be a throwaway, like chibi like series,
Y-
but that's not the impression that I'm getting now. And knowing that the creator of Dragon Ball had a part in this and was actually working actively within the show. He was like actually working hands on within the show to see it through with his vision. Um, it has me really excited. I just absolutely can't wait for this. I think it looks great. And what do you think? What do you think?
No, I thought it looked great. Arguably, I think at times it looks better than Dragon Ball Super, which I
I
never
thought the
finished
same.
it, and to be fair, I didn't have an interest in wanting to go back and finish Super. I didn't care for it because it felt like it continued the whole power creep that Z had. The go from the planet to saving the universe. Maybe it's been a while and I haven't watched that much of it before I ended up dropping it. And I know it was popular, but the animation at times looked cheap. I know that they had to rush production through the series, but I just didn't care for the story because at times, as much as I love Dragon Ball Z, and it's the first version of Dragon Ball that I watched, there is a heart and soul that it looks like Daima's trying to go back to with Dragon Ball. Kind of bring the scale down a little bit, a more maybe not
Yes.
the whole adventure to the west type story, but a smaller scale story, a more adventure focused essentially, not trying to save the world, save the universe that I think Z had later on and Super kind of continued on. And as
Yeah.
I looked into it, I didn't realize that initially they started it without him, and they were kind of trying to reach out to get some input. And then once he saw what it was, he went fully in. And it looks, as far as the production from some of the stuff I saw, and some of the other stuff that some YouTubers had been talking about. Production started back in all the way back in 2022, so this has like a
Yeah.
full 2 years of production to try to get rid of the rush. Obviously, it looked like Toei Animation had kind of made some internal changes and stuff like that, and it was, I don't know how accurate, though I guess you classify it as a rumor, but by the time this show would start, it's rumored to have 16 full episodes essentially banked up, ready to go. So there's no like, hey,
Yeah.
we need an episode out and immediately. We need trying to avoid that whole rushed. Though to be fair, I think Super should have done what some other shonen shows like My Hero Academia does, and if production is a problem, you need to just take a break, do 12 to 20
Yes.
episodes a year. That way you don't have that problem. But I mean,
And
if you
then
have a good banked up, thing of 16 episodes that, should keep you from, at least for the first year, running into hopefully any, production rushes.
yeah. One thing I wanted to mention is that it is mentioned that the original work, story, and character design is all by Akira Toriyama.
Yeah.
And then I read elsewhere that he had like 75% input into the series and the story and the direction of which it was going. And one thing that I love is how stylized it is. It looks really, really good for the style it is. The battle sequences. I'm looking at some of the battle sequences of Goku, and they just they look so good.
Oh, very
Like
crisp. Yeah.
better than Super.
Oh,
Like
I
this looks like it has time put into it and that they actually care. Um so I think this show is going to be a bigger deal than people are probably, anticipating, because it really looks like it kind of, like you said, scales back to that more, not to the adventure to the west sort of storyline of the original Dragon Ball, but it scales back to like Dragon Ball Z ish, in between Dragon Ball Z type of deal. Like it definitely introduces other unique villains that aren't power level 11,000,
yeah.
more realistic type of stuff. And the transformation scenes look really good. I'm watching this real time. Like Kamehameha looks like it just looks so good. I mean, it legitimately looks so good.
Yeah, and I know
So,
you
I mean,
mentioned it, the whole chibi, but it looked like less a chibi, more like they're kind of aging down pretty much all our main characters from Super and Z
yeah,
essentially. And then the
yeah.
one thing I didn't really get was exactly what, maybe I missed a trailer here or there, or maybe I missed something, but what left me wondering was like, what exactly are they going to do with the story? Because every trailer that I've watched, there's
We
no
don't have
story.
any
You're
story
just
info.
showing images, and it's kind of leaving me
That's
hopeful for
good.
it though.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. We don't know any story from this. We have no idea, which I
I,
think is a good thing.
I like
It
going in
leaves
blind.
me, yeah, suspenseful. Um, you have no idea like exactly where it's set and when, because like my thought was, I mean, you take Dragon Ball Super, like where is this set in the timeline? You know what I mean? Like, is this set right after Super?
See, that's the one thing I don't know because I'm
See,
like,
I don't know
I
either.
didn't finish Super. I've got like the first volume on Blu-ray for Super, but I don't have an immediate issue,
I
a want or on my docket to really want to go back and finish or watch Super. And maybe that's a wrong opinion, and maybe I'm missing it. The show got really great later on, but early on, I didn't ultimately didn't care for it. But
I made it to like episode 130 something, and it wasn't an intentional drop. I really enjoyed it. For whatever reason, I dropped it at that point and never picked it back up. But this is one where I feel like I don't want to miss any of it, and I do want to watch. But a couple of things I wanted to point out was, A, this coincides with the 40th anniversary of Dragon Ball, and then B, this comes out. Hold on, let me see here.
I thought it came out in October of this
Yeah, so
year.
so this comes out in October, and then also there's something else that I want to mention. Yeah, the 40th anniversary. I can't remember what else I was going to mention, but yeah, October. So it's right around the corner. But we know nothing about the story unless there's like an article out there that has some sort of interview breakdown. But based on the trailers I've seen, don't know anything. Um,
I'm fine
so
with
I'm
that.
I'm fine with it too. I'd rather go in blind and see what happens. And my initial impression was that it had a chibi design, but that's obviously not the case because you see adult characters that look normal in the show.
Yeah.
Like you could see a Vegeta, like I'm watching back again. Let me see if I can pull back
So I
the
mean, it kind of
spot.
makes sense that they start normal and then something happens that
Yeah, there's like
kind
a
of
normal
de-ages
size
them.
Vegeta, and then but Goku is small, so I don't know if like it maybe takes some of the elements from like GT to a degree, maybe,
I
because
guess
you've got like a young Goku, if that even is like actually Goku. I mean, it could be something we have no idea. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
because you've got like a large, you have normal size Vegeta, but then you've got Goku who is small. Like I said, I'm just assuming it's Goku. Maybe it's uh Gohan's son who looks like Goku, right? What
Yeah.
that's the case, right? Like he looks like Goku, so that could be Gohan's son. So that would make more sense because there's a full size Piccolo.
But I guess that's the one thing is I assumed they were getting aged down, but I thought it was interesting because maybe I missed it in Super, but the fact that the trailer was showing that they're bringing back the his power pole, which is
Yeah,
a
I see
staple
that. Yeah.
from the original show, the whole Journey to the West, Black Myth Wukong, there's a power pole that extends essentially.
Because you know what? It might actually be that that is Gohan's son because I've watched this back like 16 times now as we're talking. And when I'm looking, it almost looks like I see Trunks' son as well.
I mean, I assume they're all in the show. I just don't know exactly where they're going. And
No, like Trunks' son, but using the transformation with, I don't know if it's Gohan's son or if it's Goku. I'm assuming Gohan's son because that makes no sense if it was Goku unless they're doing a GT type deal where they're aging them down, but not aging down Vegeta makes no sense to me.
yeah, I don't know what the plot's gonna be. All I know is when I was excited with the trailer, and I'm kind of curious. And maybe we're right, maybe we're wrong. Maybe you're watching this, a month after the show aired, and you're like, oh, you are all so stupid. You completely missed the point.
I'm gonna look up what Daima means because maybe there's something that we don't know.
I'm not sure. It might be
Daima.
a word. It might be something wholly made up. Who knows? I wouldn't be
Evil.
surprised.
Evil. It means evil.
So
Dragon
this,
Ball Evil.
well, it leaves
It
me
says,
guessing more.
oh, wait, hold on. Here's what it says Daima is actually a made up word created by Akira Toriyama uh, through its derived from the Japanese characters, which I can't say the characters. These roughly translate into the word evil, which fits the supposed mysterious. Hold on, I'm trying to keep reading it. It's making me click.
The
Dang it.
supposed evil.
Yeah, that's where it
That's a good
stopped.
title.
Yeah. Well, it's a made up word, obviously, that's meant to be evil. So,
Yeah.
uh,
I mean, it wouldn't be the first
yeah,
time they've made up words for anime.
it says Goku. Okay, hold on. Here we got a little bit more information actually. Now much smaller and seemingly weaker than before, Goku will go back down memory lane in order to contend with what happens to him. Using his iconic power pool, the Saiyan warrior will go on adventures somewhat closer to those seen in the original Dragon Ball. So far, this is all that's been revealed about the plot for Daima, but more will likely be unveiled as the series nears its release date. And then somebody put, "What does Daima mean in Dragon Ball Daima?" Uh, for instance, the franchise creator Akira Toriyama jokingly suggested the Z in Dragon Ball Z due to it being the last letter in the alphabet, as he vainly hoped it would be the end of the series. Dragon Ball GT's suffix stood for Grand Tour, which I did not know. As the characters were traveling throughout the cosmos for the Black Star Dragon Balls. Likewise, Dragon Ball Super took things in a more cosmic direction, hence the name. Daima is actually a made up word. We read that. These roughly translate into the word evil, which fits the supposed mysterious conspiracy that makes up the show's premise. At the same time, the new series is said to have a somewhat lighthearted and adventurous tone, which may contradict anything particularly dark or evil about its content. So that kind of tells me we know absolutely nothing, but we may have time traveling involved.
Maybe. Kind of seems like, at least for some of the aspects, kind of on the right path. But I mean, it just leaves me kind of excited to see what they want to do with the story. And then I guess we'll find
Yeah.
out episode 1 how it's connected to to Super and stuff like that, or is Super even relevant to have watched, or can you just jump into this and just fully enjoy it? And if there's gonna be references, and if you get them, you get them. If not, you don't. Go watch the other stuff.
My guess is that this is set after Super and that probably this is going to have to do with time traveling
Yeah,
and trying to deal with something in the past that he wants to correct. So that's my assumption. So I'm not I wouldn't say that, you know, not to watch Super to understand what's going on, but I'm just assuming that that's probably what's going to happen. But who knows? We
yeah,
could be totally wrong. But it is interesting to see because I'm watching back the original trailer when they announced it and how they reference the original Dragon Ball manga and then the original Dragon Ball opening. So I thought that was kind of funny. They harken back to that and they want to. I've said it over and over and over again. I prefer Dragon Ball over every Dragon Ball series that's come out because I like the adventure aspect of it.
yeah,
So I prefer the adventure over the fighting scenes, personally.
yeah. Fell into the power creep that Z and Super kind of fell into.
I mean, like obviously I love Z. I mean, I have a deep love for Z, but
Yeah,
just that getting higher and higher power level, like where do you max out at? You know what I mean? Super Saiyan God, like where do you go beyond that? So now they got to scale back down and do something back in the vein of Dragon Ball, which is what I've wanted for years. I've wanted a more adventure-esque Dragon Ball show. So
I think it's also crazy that it's been 40 years since the original Dragon
I
Ball.
know. Isn't that crazy? And
That
it's
is
sad
crazy.
that we've lost Akira and he doesn't get to see this come to fruition. And that's a huge bummer.
I
I
guess the
mean, it would have
best
been
hope
great to.
is because I assume he's had that very significant. Obviously, it's been in production for a few years now,
Yeah.
but hopefully they can continue on for however long this show is supposed to run, and they continue out his vision the further on they go.
And the crazy thing with having his vision in this is that he's very notorious for saying he does not like anime. He said this in many, many interviews. You can look it up. He does not like anime. So, and he never watched Dragon Ball Z ever.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, never watched a single episode of it, and he was not into anime. So, for him to take part in this new show is kind of a big deal because he doesn't like anime and he didn't care.
Yeah,
So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see for sure.
it's been quite a while since the original Ghost in the Shell movie has come out. Had adaptations for like standalone complex. We've had other series like Arise. We've had that god awful live action adaptation of the movie that I feel like just butchered the source. Another adaptation that was ripe to succeed, and somehow they just ruined it in the writing room when Hollywood feels like they ruins everything they touch. Um, do you
Yeah.
have any strong or fond memories of when you first watched the original Ghost in the Shell movie?
So what was the one that was Seed? Um Ghost in the Shell. Was it Ghost in the Shell? Oh, hold on, let me look it up.
You said something with Seed.
Ghost.
I'm thinking of like standalone complex. It was kind of abbreviated to SAC. I don't know if that's what you're talking about.
Of course, I've seen the live action movie. That's not the one I was thinking
My condolences.
of.
I intentionally was like I saw that. I'm like, let me see some reviews, and I was like, yeah, I
Yeah,
made the right decision to boycott. It was
it
terrible.
was really bad. It was really, really
Like
bad.
I
No, I was
caught
trying.
parts of it on like live streaming that I was already paying for, and I'm like, yeah, didn't even finish it. I was like, I absolutely hated it.
Oh, okay. So one of the ones that I watched was Ghost in the Shell, Solid State Society. I don't know if you ever read. I don't know if you've ever read
That's
any
the
of that.
I'm in the process of reading the original manga, but I've not read the Solid State Society. I believe.
So I thought it was okay, and then I watched Ghost in the Shell Arise. I think what was it? Arise Borders, I think.
Yeah, I actually have the
Or
first two. I need to finish watching it. Rather the what's it the third and fourth film.
but of course, standalone complex.
That's like
It's
the poster
classic.
child for as far as
Yeah,
the TV shows. Uh,
yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I loved it back then. I loved it back then, but it's been many years since I've
I think it's
watched it.
still it's not something I can go back and watch a lot, but I still think it holds up a lot now. Because the Ghost in the Shell's always kind of been a whole kind of philosophical in nature and kind of like a story it's trying to
Yeah,
tell. It's never straightforward, and that's really what grasped me about the first movie. Obviously, if you want to, there's plenty of like YouTube videos out there that go down the whole rabbit hole of what's it trying to tell, the philosophical, the whole. I mean, it goes to the name of the show, a ghost in a shell. Like, are you
yeah.
really a person, or are you, if you were to like, turn your whole body into a machine, are you still the same person? Essentially like take your brain out to some of that aspect. If if with
Did
the, I guess it's a better as I stumble over my words a little bit. Uh, since we're talking about AI, if you ever had like a true AI, could like a machine like have a soul? Feels like it asks a whole lot of questions. That
it
definitely
asks?
goes into
That's a
cyberpunk as
question that.
whole.
Yeah, it does. I mean, that's a very deep discussion, I think.
Yeah,
Um, did you ever watch Ghost in the Shell the movie or watch Innocence?
I've watched Innocence. I didn't care for it, but the live
I didn't
action,
care.
I
Yeah, I didn't care for it.
watched it on streaming, a few years later, and I never even finished watching it because I hated it that much.
No,
Uh,
no, no. Ghost in the Shell the movie, the anime movie is what I
the
meant.
oh, sorry, to the standalone complex.
No, it's just Ghost in the Shell the movie, right?
I
Isn't that
mean,
called
there's
just Ghost in the Shell the movie? Hold
I
on, let me look it up.
nothing that's
Yeah,
called that specifically.
I gotta pull it up right here.
Uh,
Ghost in the Shell the movie.
the new movie, is that what you're talking about?
No, it's an anime movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I watched it. I streamed it online not super long ago.
I mean, you say that, and I'm like, I've watched some movies. Like I've watched the Laughing Man movie, but that's tied to
I've
the
got I
to the
literally
standalone
got it pulled
complex.
up right now. Ghost in the Shell the movie. You can buy the Blu-ray on.
I'm not seeing anything that's actually called that.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah, but I say so. Like you're saying that, I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what year did this movie come
Uh,
out? Okay, so the English title is called The New Movie.
so if they just add new to it,
In the English title, it's probably got a different title in Japan. And they, I don't.
but you haven't seen this, correct?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so you didn't even yeah. So I watched this and I didn't like it. I didn't care for it. To be honest with you, so far I haven't really watched anything else besides Standalone Complex that I've really liked. But I will say the games that I played have all been really good, especially the PS2 games. So
Yeah,
I love those.
can't say I played the games, but to me, it really peaks with the original movie. Didn't care for the Innocence movie, the second movie. That it's obviously set up at the end of the first movie. But standalone complex is, I think, peak Ghost in the Shell.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
mentioned the new movie. I didn't get. I haven't watched it. I have watched Arise. I think it's okay, but I didn't super care for it all that much. But I mean, Ghost in the Shell has always been that more a mix between action and the philosophical questions that it likes
Yeah.
to ask, and kind of leave it up to you, your interpretation. Is there a ghost in the machine or something like that? Uh, but but still, I think it's a classic movie. It's a classic cyberpunk movie, and you can't go wrong with it. Whether it's the original movie or I recommend the original movie and then standalone complex. Obviously, they're two
Yeah,
totally
I
different
agree.
things, and obviously the manga that the movie's based on, wholesale, completely different tone. And there's a few different manga where you're talking about the original manga. I think they're all good, and they kind of get to the same point. They're just get to it in different ways. And
Yeah.
I think the animes do that in the movies as well, but I think some of them are just better. Or a lot of people first got into it with standalone complex in the original, so you're used to a far more serious or their take on it, and you see something different. And you're kind of like, this is not what I want. Even when
Yeah.
there's a multitude of different takes on it, even from the original manga itself. But
Sure. Yeah. I get what you're saying. I get what you're
yeah,
saying.
all I can say is if you haven't got around to it for whatever reason, definitely watch it. You won't be led astray.
I agree. And then one of the better anime that you can watch is obviously Pokemon. Here I've got $1 million in Pokebills and just a shout out to the Pokemon anime. That's all.
Pokebucks.
Pokebucks.
Hey, came to my mind. And this one was I kind of been fiddling around with what I wanted to do, but and I'm not fully caught up on this, but we have a new trailer and quasi new for the Mobile Suit Gundam Silver Phantom, which is a VR film that comes out October 3rd,
Yeah.
2024 on the MetaQuest. Obviously, there's two different takes on this.
Do we have a
One,
trailer for this by
yes,
chance?
there's a trailer on YouTube. Sorry, I didn't. For those behind the scenes, I didn't link in the notes, but that's kind of my bad for Brandon.
You're
I
good.
think it
Oh,
kind of looks interesting. It looks in a way that you would think if you haven't already. I think it came out in July when the trailer came out, if I'm not misunderstanding. First of all, you have the Gundam aspect. It takes place during, I believe, double O. I have it written down. Or I thought I had it written down. I believe it's 0096. It takes place
wow, this looks cool.
yeah, it takes place the same year that the Gundam Unicorn takes place in. So I'm not exactly sure as far as the Titan because I'm still in the process of watching Universal Century Gundam, so I'm not all the way up to where Gundam Unicorn is, though it's on my list. But it's a take on both the show as far as how it's gonna interact with the rest of the universe. But there's, I think, a bigger question of how do you take VR and turn that experience into an actual full length feature film. How does watching a movie in VR feel? Because it's not like in a regular film, you have a point of view that the director wants you to watch, and that's fine. That's kind of what we're used to doing, even with every kind of medium. Even games, most games are kind of like that. But then you take it into a film. It's one thing to have VR in a game. It's another for a film. Like, are you gonna have true full 360 view? Because that's also a lot more you have to think about when you're filming this. And I think
Yeah.
some scenes kind of look like it's kind of like a cutscene from a game, the whole 3D CG, because
Yeah,
you have to take a
that's what I'm
full,
seeing.
environment, into account. I don't know if it could be somewhat limited, I assume you can't like move forward and backward and see different stuff, but it kind of gives you like, hey, your characters are like talking in front of you. You can kind of look and see what's kind of going on around. I think it's interesting. I don't know.
My my assumption is this is going to be more like a 4D movie. So I don't know if you ever remember. I never got to actually see them, but they did like a Shrek 4D. It was kind of like semi a ride, semi a movie. Actually, it
Yeah,
wasn't a ride. I'm sorry. It was a movie, and it was exclusive to Universal Orlando. It was a 4D movie. So by 4D, it meant like obviously you got to see everything, everybody close up, but also incorporated like smell and like the environment. So like if there was like a windy scene in the movie, you felt the wind. Obviously you're not going to get that in VR, but my assumption is this is probably just going to be like, oh, you see everything a lot closer up. It feels more interactive, even though you can't interact with it,
yeah.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
because I've seen 4D films, not at like Universal, but at some theaters when I was in South Korea. It's one of the X-Men movies. It starts with the whole pyramid. I can't remember what it is, but I saw one of those where it's, your feet would get slapped, you get misted when the seat wouldn't move all the way up, and
Yeah.
you have like limited
Yeah,
movements.
yeah.
That's
I
some
never got to see one, but I get the concept.
Yeah, it's like an interesting take as far as that goes. But I was thinking this, and I was like, first of all, love the Gundam, huge Universal Century fan. Uh, I'm still in the process of trying to finish Double Zeta right now. Like Zeta is a really good show, as well as the original. At the very least, I want to get to Char's Counterattack because I've watched a lot of the spin-off stuff and talked about that in depth later. But
I'm not gonna lie, this is another thing on the list of why I want to get a MetaQuest 3.
it's getting there.
Because if they did this more, it would excite me because I would love to watch stuff where it feels that interactive and like that close to your face and where it's like an experience. It's a film
Yeah,
experience.
and
Like
I
I
don't
would
know off the top of my head how long it's. I don't have it pulled up, or if we know how long it's actually going to be. I assume it's at least an hour, but it's not even. I assume like the dead periods where they're just talking would be kind of boring, but the actual action scenes, like when you're in a fight, that's where I feel like this could really take advantage of it because it's not like
yeah.
you can not only experience like what the your main character is doing, but the scene as a whole, like multiple suits, multiple ships firing each other, just experiencing that in a full, VR, environment. I think would be really cool. It's kind of like a what
Yeah.
you do with a video game, but it's just you can just sit back and just take everything in. And I think the
In the good
ability with VR is every watch through is not always going to be exactly the same. Obviously, some of the audio, the story is going to be the same depending on how it carries you through. But the way you can experience a film, you can have slightly
yeah.
different experiences every time.
And this is canon, correct? I would assume.
From what I understand, yes. Well,
Yeah.
if you really want to go hypothetical or not hypothetical, I'm blanking on the word for it, or like super meta. Technically, all Gundams canon. If you take with Turn A Gundam, technically all Gundams canon, and it comes together with Turn A. It's super convoluted, but it like in
Just like
theory
everything
every
else.
every timeline eventually comes together in some weird canonization of it. You know, super meta.
Yeah.
Don't want to get too far into it, but no, I'm
Yeah, it looks
I'm
cool.
yeah, I'm overall I see this, I'm overall excited, and I think it's gonna be good. I just not gonna probably watch it because I don't have not only do I not have a MetaQuest, I don't have any VR outside of the OG PSVR, so kind
I
of
assume this
SOL
isn't
right
going to
now.
be this is a MetaQuest exclusive too.
From what I saw, yes, it's at least for the immediate. It'll only be on the MetaQuest,
So I'm SOL unless I
or
already want to get a MetaQuest 3, but it's like this is another reason to add to the list, but I feel like I need like 3 or 4 more things to actually make the purchase. You know what I mean? Like I
yeah.
need a few more things to convince me because I've got the Batman game coming out. You know, I've got this now. I need a couple more things to convince me to purchase it.
No,
So
yeah, and I guess my one thing is I don't think you could do proper VR with live action just because hey, here's the film crew. I don't think that works, but when you're dealing with like VR, trying to expand it, I think an animated film or like a 3D CG film would work perfect with VR. It's just how do you properly tell a story with VR? I think it just lends itself to a lot of creativity, and that's really why I saw this less for the Gundam, more of the the film in VR. Maybe there's more out there that I just missed. I'm not super big into VR as of right now, but
Yeah.
I saw VR, which is starting to gain. It's slowly growing. It's getting there, but it's still a niche. And then you take a side film with Gundam, and it's like I really like Gundam. VR is kind of a niche. Maybe this will be one of the things that slowly by slowly inches me towards actually spending money on a MetaQuest or a VR in general.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I feel. I think it looks cool.
No, yeah, definitely. Is there anything else specifically that you wanted to talk about or bring up?
Uh, I don't think so. No, not. I don't have any pickups or anything this week related to the show. So,
No, I
anything for you?
no. I mean, it's always hard to tell how long we're going to talk about a single subject, and I know because this is obviously for those of you that don't know. Obviously, it's kind of pre-taped, and I know Brandon's. When we're filming this, he's got to be up pretty early in the morning, so this would be the first episode that will actually be under an hour, but that's fine. We go as long as it needs to. No needs to drag out certain subjects, but obviously we've got a lot more that we want to talk about. And if there's something you want
Yeah.
to see, some more like, hey, you have more questions or us to inject, obviously some
Yeah.
stuff it's easier to talk a lot about. We definitely appreciate everyone's support that's able to get this far and is supporting the channel. Definitely
Yep.
appreciate y'all. Obviously, sub, hit the notification bell, give a like, leave us comments down below. We definitely appreciate everything. And then we will see you next week for episode 5.
See y'all later.
All right. You have a good evening, y'all. See y'all later.